Welcome to Bible Stories for Sleep. Remain here with this peaceful story until the final quiet moments, where true stillness rests. Long ago, beyond the familiar paths of Israel, there lay the land of Moab, resting quietly east of the Jordan River. It was a country shaped by gentle rises and wide open spaces, where the hills rolled softly into one another, and the valleys settled low and still, as if the earth itself had learned how to be calm. The air over Moab often felt unhurried, carrying the warmth of the sun by day and the cool hush of evening as night slowly approached. Moab was a land that seemed to listen more than it spoke. Its fields stretched out beneath open skies, dotted with grasses that bent easily to the breeze. Here and there, clusters of trees offered shade and silence, their leaves whispering softly when the wind passed through. The roads were narrow and worn, shaped by the steady movement of travelers and animals rather than by haste or noise. Everything in Moab appeared settled into its place, as though time itself moved more slowly across its hills. In the distance, the mountains rose with quiet strength, their outlines softened by light and shadow. These high places watched over the land without judgment, standing firm through seasons of sun and rain. Between them lay valleys where shepherds sometimes led their flocks, where the earth gave rest to those who walked upon it. Streams, though not many, traced gentle paths through the soil, offering life without disturbance. Even the waters seemed to flow with care, never rushing, always finding their way. The people of Moab lived close to the rhythms of the land. Their days were guided by sunrise and sunset, by planting and harvest, by the slow turning of seasons. Homes were built to last, made of stone and earth, blending into the landscape rather than standing apart from it. In the evenings, lamps were lit as shadows lengthened, and the land settled into quiet rest beneath the stars. Though peaceful in appearance, Moab was not untouched by concern. News travelled slowly but carried weight, and the presence of Israel nearby stirred thoughts among its leaders. Still, the land itself remained calm, unaware of plans and worries. The hills did not tense, and the valleys did not tremble. They remained as they had always been, steady and silent, holding the memories of generations who had walked their paths before. As night came, Moab grew even quieter. The sky deepened into rich shades of blue, and stars appeared one by one, scattered gently across the heavens. The land seemed to breathe out, releasing the heat of the day. Sounds faded until only the soft movements of animals and the distant call of night birds remained. In this stillness, Moab felt far removed from urgency or conflict, like a place set aside for waiting. It was within this calm land that a king named Balak ruled. From his dwelling, he could look out over the fields and hills that had long defined his people. He knew their boundaries and their history, and he watched carefully as events unfolded beyond them. Though his thoughts were troubled by the growing presence of Israel, the land around him remained unchanged, offering no sign of alarm. Moab held its peace, even as decisions were being formed within human hearts. Travelers who entered Moab often sensed this quiet difference. Their footsteps softened upon the earth, their voices lowered without effort. The land itself invited stillness. Even animals seemed to move with gentle awareness, as if attuned to something unseen. Paths wound slowly through the hills, encouraging patience rather than speed, reflection rather than haste. This was the land that waited at the edge of the story. Before words were spoken and journeys begun, Moab rested in silence, held between fear and calm, between what was known and what was yet to come. Its hills and valleys stood ready to witness events guided not by human intention alone, but by the unseen direction of the Lord, who watched over all lands and all paths, even those that appeared quiet and far away. Beyond the quiet hills of Moab, attention slowly turns toward a man whose name was already known across many lands. His name was Balaam, son of Beor, a seer whose words were listened to with care and remembered long after they were spoken. He did not live among the hills of Moab, but farther away in Pethor, near the great river Euphrates, in a region where paths from many nations crossed and stories travelled with those who walked them. Balaam's reputation had grown over many years. People spoke of him as a man whose blessings carried weight, and whose words of warning were not easily dismissed. Kings and leaders believed that what he spoke would surely come to pass. Yet Balaam himself lived quietly, far from royal courts and crowded places. His days were marked by stillness and thought, by listening rather than speaking, by watching the world with careful attention. His home was simple, suited to a life of reflection. Mornings often began in silence, with the soft light of day touching the ground outside his door. Balaam would sit quietly, allowing his thoughts to settle, aware that wisdom did not rush and truth was not found through noise. He understood that guidance often arrived in moments of calm, when the heart was open and the mind was not distracted. Balaam knew that the Lord, the God of Israel, was not distant or silent. He believed that this God spoke in ways that required patience and humility to hear. Sometimes guidance came through dreams in the night. Other times it arrived as a quiet certainty that rested within him, steady and clear. Balaam had learned not to ignore these moments. He treated them with respect, knowing they were not his own thoughts alone. People who sought Balaam often arrived with urgency, carrying hopes or fears they could not ease by themselves. They believed Balaam could see what others could not, that he could sense the direction of events before they unfolded. Balaam listened to them calmly, never hurried by their concern. He understood that unseen matters required careful discernment, not quick answers. Though he was well known, Balaam did not move through life with pride. He was aware of the limits of his own understanding. His insight did not come from skill or learning alone, but from a source greater than himself. This awareness shaped the way he lived. He did not speak lightly, and he did not act without reflection. Each decision was weighed against what he believed the Lord desired. At times, Balaam would walk alone, allowing the quiet of the land to surround him. The earth beneath his feet and the sky above him reminded him of order and purpose beyond human plans. In these moments, he sensed that every path was known to God, even when those walking upon it could not see where it led. It was this careful balance of knowledge and humility that made Balaam respected and sought after. Those who heard of him believed that his words carried power, yet Balaam himself knew that power did not belong to him. He understood himself as a listener first, a speaker second. His role was to receive and then to speak only what was given. As distant events began to stir concern in Moab, thoughts of Balaam slowly entered the minds of those who ruled there. They remembered what was said of him, that those he blessed were blessed, and those he spoke against did not prosper. Balaam, however, remained where he was, unaware of the plans forming far away. He continued his quiet rhythm of life, attentive to the unseen, steady in his awareness that guidance would come when it was needed, and never before its time. In time, the quiet rhythm of Balaam's days was gently interrupted by movement along the road that led to his home. From far away, a small group approached, traveling with purpose but without haste. These were messengers sent by Balak son of Zippor, the king of Moab, men chosen from among the elders of Moab and Midian. They came carrying not only words, but the weight of a concern that had grown heavy in their land. Their arrival was respectful and measured. They did not rush forward or speak loudly. When they reached Balaam, they greeted him with courtesy, acknowledging his reputation and the wisdom attributed to him. With them they carried gifts, the fee for divination, a sign of honor and seriousness, offered according to the customs of their time. Nothing about their presence was careless. Every movement suggested that their errand mattered deeply. When they spoke, their words were chosen with care. They told Balaam of a people who had come out of Egypt, a people who now covered the land like a shadow across the fields. They described how Israel camped nearby, how their numbers seemed great, and how their presence stirred unease. Their voices remained calm, yet the meaning beneath their words carried concern that could not be hidden. Balak's message was clear and deliberate. The king asked Balaam to come to Moab and to speak against Israel, to curse them, so that Moab might find relief from fear. The messengers did not demand. They requested. They spoke as men who believed that Balaam's words held power, and that his willingness could change the course of events. Balaam listened without interruption. He did not respond quickly or with emotion. He allowed their words to settle, understanding both the request and its implications. He knew the people they spoke of were under the care of the Lord, the God who had brought them out of Egypt with strength and purpose. This knowledge rested quietly within him as he considered what had been asked. With calm composure, Balaam answered the messengers. He did not agree or refuse at once. Instead, he told them to remain with him for the night. He explained that he would seek guidance from the Lord and would speak only what the Lord told him to speak. His words were steady and sincere, reflecting his understanding that such matters could not be decided by human desire alone. The messengers accepted his response without protest. They stayed, resting as evening settled around the house. The light softened, and the day drew to a close. Nothing further was said. The request remained present, but unanswered, held gently in the quiet space between question and response. As night covered the land, Balaam turned inward, attentive as he had always been. He sought the Lord, placing the matter before him without haste. In the stillness, the Lord came to Balaam and asked who the men were who had come to him. Balaam spoke plainly, repeating the message from Balak and the reason for their visit. The answer from the Lord was clear and without uncertainty. Balaam was told not to go with them and not to curse the people, because they were blessed. The words did not carry anger or force. They carried authority and certainty. Balaam received them with the same quiet respect with which he received all divine instruction. When morning came, Balaam rose and went to the messengers. He did not delay or soften what he had been told. He explained that the Lord had refused to allow him to go with them. His response was direct but calm, leaving no room for misunderstanding. He did not speak of his own will, but of the decision given to him. The elders of Moab and Midian listened and then departed, returning to Balak with Balaam's answer. They carried back the message that Balaam had refused to come. Though their journey had not brought the outcome they sought, they left as they had arrived, with restraint and order, unaware that this exchange was only the beginning of a path shaped by obedience, misunderstanding, and the unfolding purpose of the Lord. After the messengers had departed and the sound of their steps faded from the road, the house returned to stillness. Evening settled gently around Balaam, and the quiet he knew so well came back to its place. A small lamp burned nearby, its flame steady and soft, casting warm light across the walls. Shadows rested without movement, and the air seemed to pause, as though waiting alongside him. Balaam remained awake, not restless, but attentive. The request that had been placed before him carried weight, and he did not treat it lightly. He understood that obedience required careful listening, not hurried action. In the calm of the night, he allowed his thoughts to slow, letting the concerns of kings and nations fade into the background. What remained was a quiet awareness of the presence of the Lord. The room held no noise beyond the gentle sound of breathing and the faint whisper of the lamp's flame. Outside, the land lay still beneath the darkened sky. There was no urgency in the night, no demand for immediate movement. Time seemed to stretch, giving space for reflection and clarity. Balaam rested within that space, neither asleep nor troubled, simply present. His mind returned to the words he had received. The Lord had spoken clearly, and Balaam did not question what had been said. Yet he reflected on the meaning of obedience and the path that lay before him. He knew that being known as a seer brought expectations from others, but he also knew that his calling was not to fulfill human desire. His role was to remain aligned with the will of the Lord, even when that alignment brought difficulty or misunderstanding. As the night deepened, the lamplight continued to glow, gentle and unwavering. It illuminated nothing dramatic, only the simple details of the room. In that soft light, Balaam found ease. He did not strive for new answers. He allowed what had already been given to rest within him. Silence became a companion rather than an absence. The still air seemed to carry a sense of order. Balaam felt it in the quiet beat of his heart and in the slow rhythm of his breath. He understood that guidance often unfolded over time, not all at once. Waiting was not a pause in purpose, but part of it. In this waiting, there was no fear. There was trust. He thought of the people of Israel, whom the Lord had called blessed. He considered the long journey they had taken and the care that had guided them. These thoughts did not stir excitement or concern, only recognition. The Lord who spoke to him was the same Lord who watched over them. That understanding brought a settled calm. The night moved on without announcement. Hours passed quietly, marked only by the gradual softening of lamplight as its oil slowly diminished. Balaam remained composed, his thoughts clear, his spirit steady. He did not rehearse conversations or imagine outcomes. He simply remained open, prepared to receive whatever direction might come. When rest finally reached him, it did so gently. His body relaxed, and his mind eased into stillness. There was no sharp division between waking and sleep, only a gradual drifting, as though carried by the quiet itself. Even in rest, his awareness remained turned toward the Lord, confident that nothing was missed in silence. The night held its peace until morning drew near, and Balaam remained within that peace, grounded in the knowledge that obedience had already been shown to him. What lay ahead was unseen, but the path beneath his feet was steady, shaped by listening, waiting, and the quiet assurance that the Lord's guidance did not fade with the darkness. Morning arrived quietly, with a pale light spreading across the land and easing away the last shadows of night. The air was cool and still, carrying the promise of a new day without urgency. Balaam rose from his place of rest with calm intention, his movements unhurried, his thoughts clear. The guidance he had received remained steady within him, and he prepared himself for the path that now lay before him. Outside, the world seemed freshly washed by dawn. The ground held the softness of early light, and the sky opened slowly, its colors gentle and restrained. Balaam stepped into this quiet hour and began the simple tasks of readiness. There was no ceremony, only the careful gathering of what was needed. Each action followed the next with ease, shaped by familiarity and patience. Nearby stood his donkey, a faithful animal accustomed to travel and long days on the road. She waited calmly, shifting only slightly, her presence steady and reassuring. Balaam approached her without haste, placing the saddle upon her back with practiced care. The leather settled softly, and the donkey remained still, as though aware of the rhythm of the morning and the purpose of the journey. As Balaam set out, the first sounds of travel emerged gently. Footsteps met the earth in an even pattern, neither rushed nor heavy. The donkey moved with quiet assurance, her steps sure and measured. The road stretched ahead, worn smooth by many who had passed before, offering direction without demand. The world around them remained hushed. Birds stirred softly in the distance, their calls faint and unintrusive. A light breeze moved across the land, brushing against leaves and grass, then passing on without disturbance. The journey began not with announcement, but with continuation, as though it had always been waiting for this moment. Balaam rode in thoughtful silence. His posture was relaxed, his attention open to what lay around him. He did not press forward with expectation, nor did he look back with hesitation. The steady movement carried him onward, each step marking progress without strain. The donkey's breathing matched the pace of the road, calm and unbroken. The path narrowed and widened in gentle turns, guiding them through open spaces and quieter stretches. Sunlight filtered across the ground, warming the earth slowly. Shadows shifted with the passing of time, marking the hours without calling attention to themselves. The journey unfolded as a series of simple moments, each complete in itself. Balaam's thoughts rested lightly. He did not rehearse words or imagine encounters. He remained attentive, trusting that direction would be made known when needed. The silence of the road was not empty. It held meaning, offering space for awareness and understanding. Even the pauses in movement carried purpose. The donkey continued faithfully, attentive to the path beneath her hooves. When the ground changed, she adjusted without fuss. When the road curved, she followed its shape naturally. Her presence was steady and gentle, a quiet companion on the journey. Balaam allowed himself to settle into the rhythm she set, finding ease in her consistency. As the morning advanced, the sounds of the world grew slightly more distinct, yet remained soft. Distant movement hinted at life beyond the road, but nothing intruded upon their passage. The land seemed content to watch them pass, unchanged and untroubled. Each step forward carried them farther from the stillness of the night and deeper into the unfolding day. The journey did not demand haste or resolve. It simply continued, guided by the steady movement of feet and hooves, by the quiet confidence of one who listened, and by the gentle presence of a creature who walked the path with calm awareness. The road remained open before them, unmarked by signs or signals, yet clearly laid out. Balaam followed it without resistance, allowing the morning to shape the pace and the direction. In this gentle beginning, the journey found its form, shaped not by force, but by quiet obedience and the soft unfolding of the day. The donkey moved beneath Balaam with quiet confidence, her steps falling into a steady pattern that carried them forward without strain. She had walked many roads before, and this one was no different in her careful attention to the ground beneath her hooves. Each step was placed with intention, neither hurried nor uncertain, as though she understood the value of patience and balance. Her ears turned gently with the sounds around her, catching the soft rustle of grass and the distant call of birds. She responded to these sounds not with alarm, but with awareness. Nothing startled her. She accepted the world as it was, meeting each moment with calm readiness. The road offered uneven patches and smooth stretches alike, and she adjusted to each change without pause. There was a quiet intelligence in her movements. When the path curved, she followed it naturally. When the ground narrowed, she slowed, careful to remain sure-footed. Her breathing remained even, and her body moved in harmony with the rhythm of travel. Balaam felt the steadiness of her presence and allowed himself to rest within it, trusting the pace she set. The donkey's patience was unspoken but constant. She did not resist the length of the journey or the weight she carried. She accepted both without complaint, moving forward with the same calm resolve she had shown since the beginning. Her tail swayed gently, her head held steady, her gaze attentive to what lay ahead. As they travelled, sunlight warmed her back, and she continued on without discomfort. When shadows crossed the road, she passed through them quietly, unaffected by the changing light. Her hooves met the earth with a soft sound, blending into the natural hush of the land. Each step seemed to belong exactly where it landed. There was a sense that she perceived more than she revealed. Her eyes remained open and alert, watching the road and the spaces beyond it. She noticed details that went unseen by others, subtle shifts in the air, changes in the path, movements beyond the edge of sight. Yet she did not act upon these perceptions with urgency. She held them quietly, carrying awareness within her steady walk. The bond between Balaam and the donkey was one of familiarity rather than command. He guided her with gentle signals, and she responded without hesitation. There was no tension between them, only a shared understanding formed over time. She carried him not as a burden, but as part of the journey itself. The road continued to unfold, and the donkey remained faithful to its course. When the pace slowed, she accepted it. When the path opened, she moved forward with ease. Her presence brought a sense of warmth to the journey, a reminder that not all guidance came through words or signs. Some guidance was found in consistency, in steady movement, in quiet awareness. Dust rose lightly beneath her hooves and settled just as softly behind them. The land seemed to recognize her passage and then release it, leaving no trace of disturbance. She moved as one who belonged to the road, shaped by it and shaping it in return. Balaam remained attentive to her movements, though he did not yet understand their significance. He trusted her as he always had, relying on her sure footing and calm nature. She continued forward, patient and alert, carrying both her rider and the quiet unfolding of what lay unseen ahead, guided by awareness that rested deeper than instinct alone. The road slowly changed beneath the donkey's steady steps, drawing inward as though guided by the shape of the land itself. What had once been open and wide became more enclosed, bordered by tall grasses that leaned gently toward the path. Their thin blades brushed against one another, creating a soft whisper as the breeze moved through them. The sound was light and constant, blending into the quiet of the morning. Stone walls began to rise on either side, built long ago to mark boundaries and guide travelers. Their surfaces were worn smooth by time, their edges softened by years of sun and wind. They stood close enough now that the space between them felt narrow, yet not confining. The path remained clear, inviting careful passage rather than hurried steps. The donkey sensed the change and adjusted her pace without instruction. Her movements became more deliberate, her steps shorter and more precise. She held her head steady, attentive to the closeness of the walls and the uneven ground. There was no sign of concern in her posture, only awareness and calm control. Balaam felt the narrowing of the road through the shift in rhythm. The journey asked for quiet attention rather than speed. He allowed the donkey to guide the pace, trusting her judgment as the space around them grew more intimate. The tall grasses reached inward, their tips brushing lightly against his legs, a gentle reminder of the land's presence. Light filtered differently here, broken by the height of the walls and the grasses. Sunbeams fell in narrow bands across the path, creating patterns that moved slowly as the morning advanced. Shadows rested along the stones, cool and still, offering contrast to the warmth of the open stretches behind them. The air within the narrow way felt hushed, as though sound itself had softened to fit the space. Even the donkey's hooves met the earth with quieter steps, absorbed by the closeness of the path. The world beyond the walls seemed distant, held back by stone and grass, leaving only the gentle movement forward. Each step required attention, yet nothing felt strained. The donkey remained steady, careful not to brush too closely against the walls. Her body shifted slightly as needed, maintaining balance with ease. The space invited patience, and she responded naturally, unhurried and composed. The tall grasses swayed lightly, their movement slow and rhythmic. Small insects moved among them, unnoticed and undisturbed. The stones held the warmth of the sun, radiating it gently into the narrow passage. Everything within this space seemed to exist in harmony, shaped by time rather than force. Balaam remained quiet, his thoughts aligned with the stillness around him. The closeness of the path encouraged inward focus, drawing attention away from distant concerns. There was comfort in the containment, a sense that the road knew its purpose and required nothing more than presence. The donkey continued forward, her awareness keen. She noted the subtle shifts in the ground, the places where stones pressed closer, the moments where the grasses leaned farther inward. She moved through it all with calm assurance, never pausing, never rushing. The narrow path stretched ahead, winding gently between stone and grass. It offered no view of what lay beyond its turns, yet it felt complete in itself. Within its quiet closeness, the journey continued, shaped by careful steps, softened sounds, and a peaceful sense of guidance that rested within the land and those who walked upon it. Within the quiet closeness of the narrow path, the donkey's steady rhythm began to soften. Her steps, once even and flowing, slowed almost without notice. She lifted her head slightly, her ears turning forward with careful attention. The grasses continued their gentle movement, the stone walls remained still, yet something within the space had changed, sensed by her alone. She paused, not in fear, but in recognition. Her body held still for a brief moment, as though listening to something that did not reach human ears. The air felt the same, calm and hushed, but the donkey's awareness reached beyond what could be seen. Her breathing remained steady, her posture composed, yet she did not move forward. Before her, unseen by Balaam, stood the angel of the Lord, positioned directly in the path. The angel held a drawn sword, not raised in motion, but present and unmistakable. The sight was clear to the donkey, who perceived the danger not as chaos, but as a boundary that could not be crossed. She understood without thought that the path ahead was no longer open. Carefully, she shifted her weight. Rather than stepping forward, she turned slightly to the side, seeking space where there was none. The stone wall pressed close, and the grasses leaned inward, leaving little room to pass. Still she tried, edging away from the presence before her, choosing caution over progress. Her movement was slow and deliberate. She did not bolt or cry out. She simply refused to step into what she knew would bring harm. Her hooves scraped softly against the ground as she pressed closer to the wall, her body angled away from the angel's path. In doing so, she brushed against the stones, narrowing the space even further. Balaam felt the shift, but did not understand its cause. To him, the road remained empty. The calm morning light revealed nothing unusual ahead. He sensed only hesitation where there had been movement, a pause where there had been steady travel. The donkey's refusal seemed without reason to human sight. Yet the donkey remained aware. Her eyes stayed fixed on the space before her, attentive and alert. The angel did not move aside. The sword remained drawn, its presence silent but firm. The donkey stood quietly, holding her ground, her instincts guided by a sight granted to her alone. After a moment, she attempted another step, cautious and small. Again, the presence remained. She could not proceed. The path was blocked, not by stone or grass, but by divine authority. Understanding this, she lowered herself slightly, yielding rather than advancing. Her movements were gentle, shaped by obedience rather than resistance. There was no panic in her actions. Each hesitation carried intention. She paused again, then shifted, then paused once more. Her awareness extended fully into the unseen, responding with care. To her, the situation was clear. The danger was not imagined, and the warning was not subtle. The narrow path, once peaceful and open, now held a quiet tension known only to the donkey. The walls seemed closer, the grasses still, as though the land itself acknowledged the presence standing between what had been and what must not yet continue. The donkey remained calm within it, steady in her refusal to move forward. Balaam, unaware of what stood before them, experienced only interruption. He could not see the angel of the Lord, nor the sword drawn across the path. His sight told him nothing had changed. Yet the donkey's behavior told a different story, one written not in words, but in pauses and careful restraint. The angel remained, positioned firmly, watching the pair on the path. The donkey alone perceived the truth of the moment. She did not speak, nor did she cry out. She simply responded with the wisdom she had been given, holding still within the narrow way, guided by a sight unseen and a knowledge deeper than instinct, waiting as the path itself waited, suspended between movement and restraint. Balaam shifted upon the donkey's back, feeling the long pause stretch on beneath the quiet sky. The road was still before him, empty to his eyes, and the narrow path offered no clear reason for delay. He leaned forward slightly, scanning the space ahead, yet nothing appeared out of place. The stone walls stood as they had moments before, and the tall grasses moved gently in the light breeze. Weariness began to settle into his body. The journey had already taken time, and the steady rhythm he had relied upon was now broken. His thoughts felt heavy, dulled by the slow progress and the warmth of the morning. He did not sense danger, only interruption. To him, the donkey's hesitation seemed misplaced, a pause without cause. He urged her forward, expecting her to continue as she always had. Instead, she pressed closer to the wall, her movement careful but firm. Balaam felt his foot brush hard against the stone, and the sudden discomfort stirred confusion. He did not understand why she had turned aside so sharply. The road appeared clear, and yet she would not walk it. His reaction came not from fury, but from fatigue and bewilderment. He had trusted her steady nature, and now that trust felt unsettled. He struck her lightly, attempting to correct what he believed was stubbornness or distraction. The sound was brief, the motion restrained, but the donkey did not move forward. She remained where she was, quiet and resolute. The stillness deepened. Balaam sighed, his patience thinning under the weight of unanswered questions. The sun continued its slow rise, and the path remained narrow and silent. He felt the delay more keenly now, the sense of being held in place without explanation. His thoughts wandered briefly, searching for meaning, yet none presented itself. He struck her again, not with cruelty, but with the dull persistence of one who no longer understood what had gone wrong. To him, the donkey's refusal was senseless. He could not see what she saw. The unseen presence before them remained hidden from his sight, and without that knowledge, his response stayed rooted in human limitation. The donkey lowered herself further, pressing down instead of forward. Balaam's frustration grew quieter rather than louder. It settled into him like a weight, heavy and confusing. He felt tired now, his resolve softened by uncertainty. He did not shout or cry out. He acted as one who felt delayed and weary, struggling to understand why the journey no longer flowed as it should. The narrow path held them both in its close embrace. The angel of the Lord still stood before them, sword drawn, unmoving. Balaam remained unaware, responding only to what his eyes allowed him to see. His actions were shaped not by anger alone, but by confusion, discomfort, and the slow wearing down of patience under a sky that offered no answers. In the stillness of the narrow path, with stone pressing close and grasses standing quiet, something unexpected unfolded. The Lord opened the mouth of the donkey, and from her came words, clear and calm, carried without strain or fear. Her voice did not rise or tremble. It emerged gently, as though speech itself had always rested within her, waiting for this moment. She spoke to Balaam with simple honesty, asking why she had been struck these 3 times. There was no accusation in her words, only a question shaped by faithfulness and confusion. The sound of her voice did not break the quiet of the morning. Instead, it settled into it, becoming part of the still air that surrounded them. Balaam heard her and answered without shock. The wonder of the moment passed over him softly, as though the extraordinary had been allowed to feel ordinary. He replied that she had made a mockery of him, that if he had a sword in his hand, he would have killed her. His words revealed his exhaustion and confusion more than cruelty. He spoke as one overwhelmed by interruption, not yet aware of the greater truth standing before him. The donkey answered again, reminding him of who she was. She asked whether she had ever behaved this way before in all the years she had carried him. Her words were steady, rooted in shared history and quiet loyalty. She did not defend herself with emotion. She simply spoke what was true. Balaam paused and answered her, saying no. In that brief exchange, something gentle unfolded. The donkey was heard, not dismissed. Her faithfulness was acknowledged. The moment held no urgency, no raised voices. It rested in calm recognition, suspended between the visible and the unseen. The path remained narrow. The angel of the Lord still stood ahead, unseen by Balaam, sword drawn and unmoving. Yet the conversation had shifted something within the stillness. The donkey had spoken, and her words carried meaning beyond explanation. They revealed care, patience, and a deeper awareness of the road they walked together. The donkey did not continue speaking beyond what was needed. She had said enough. Her task was not to argue or persuade, but to reveal. Her calm voice had bridged the space between instinct and understanding, between silence and truth. Balaam remained seated, his posture easing slightly. The weight of the moment settled upon him, though he did not yet fully grasp its purpose. He had listened and responded, and in doing so, he stood on the edge of revelation. The quiet of the path held them both, allowing the words spoken to linger without demand. The grasses did not move. The stones did not shift. The morning light remained soft and even. Within this still frame, a voice that had never spoken before had been heard, and a man who believed himself a seer had listened without realizing how close he stood to seeing. The donkey remained steady beneath him, her role fulfilled in calm obedience, waiting as the unseen presence prepared to be revealed. Balaam blinked slowly, his thoughts shifting as if a veil had lifted, though the world around him had not changed. The narrow path, the stone walls, and the gentle sway of grasses all remained the same, yet something within him had begun to adjust. Awareness spread quietly, like the first soft rays of morning brushing across a still landscape, gentle and unhurried. He looked down at the donkey, her calm eyes steady and attentive, and then forward, sensing a presence he had not seen before. It was the angel of the Lord, standing clearly upon the path with a drawn sword. The figure did not move, yet the quiet authority it carried filled the space, not with threat, but with certainty. Balaam's heart did not pound. Instead, understanding settled within him as a gentle warmth. The confusion that had weighed on him lifted slowly, replaced by recognition. He realized why the donkey had paused, why her careful steps had guided and restrained him. What had seemed stubbornness now appeared as wisdom and insight far beyond his own. The quiet of the morning seemed to stretch to accommodate this new clarity, allowing him to receive it fully without haste or alarm. Light, both in the land and in his mind, spread evenly. Each detail of the narrow path, each stone, each whispering blade of grass, now took on a deeper significance. The road had not been obstructed by chance. Every pause, every careful step, had been a message of caution and guidance, revealed through a creature who had been faithful all along. Balaam felt a soft humility settle into him, a gentle acknowledgment of the unseen ways of divine care. He inhaled slowly, the air carrying no urgency, only the fresh scent of morning and the quiet assurance of truth. The angel's presence was not harsh or frightening. It was firm yet calm, a reminder that even when the path seemed unclear, there was oversight and purpose guiding each step. Balaam's eyes lingered, absorbing not only the vision before him, but the lessons embedded in the stillness. The donkey remained patient beneath him, her breathing even, her posture steady. Her loyalty had not faltered, and Balaam now understood that her hesitations had been protective and insightful. A soft smile of realization touched him, unhurried and gentle, as comprehension spread like the early sun across rolling hills, illuminating what had been hidden without disturbance. Thoughts of the people of Israel entered his mind with a new light. He remembered their journey, the Lord's guidance that had brought them safely from Egypt, and the blessing that rested upon them. Nothing about their presence seemed accidental. The divine order that had shaped their steps was now mirrored in the care shown to him, the careful interruptions that had brought him to awareness without harm. The narrow path, once merely a stretch of stones and grasses, now held a quiet teaching. Every hesitation, every pause, every gentle nudge from the donkey had prepared him to see clearly. Understanding unfolded slowly, like sunlight spilling across a valley, touching every contour with calm illumination. Balaam remained seated, absorbing the revelation, his mind settling into a reflective serenity that allowed the truth to take root fully. Balaam remained still upon the donkey, the soft rhythm of her breathing beneath him grounding him in the quiet of the narrow path. The morning light stretched further across the land, spilling gently over stone walls and swaying grasses, filling the space with warmth and calm. In that soft illumination, he allowed his thoughts to settle, reflecting on the events that had unfolded, and on the quiet guidance he had only just begun to understand. The lesson revealed itself gently, like dew forming on the tips of grass. Balaam understood that the journey was not simply about reaching a destination or fulfilling a request. It was about attention and presence, about noticing the subtle messages placed along the path. The pauses of the donkey, the careful turns of her steps, the stillness that had seemed inconvenient, all carried meaning. In listening and observing, he had been given insight beyond what he could have known on his own. Humility filled him quietly. He realized that wisdom did not always speak in the voices he expected, nor appear in forms he immediately recognized. Guidance could come through the smallest gestures, the simplest creatures, and the gentlest prompts. The donkey, who had carried him faithfully for years, had become a teacher in patience and awareness, revealing a truth that could not have been learned through force or haste. Balaam's mind lingered on the power of patience. Each hesitation, each careful step along the narrow path, had allowed him space to reflect, to perceive, and to adjust. The journey was not hurried, nor could it have been rushed. There was a rhythm to learning and to understanding, a quiet unfolding that demanded stillness and attention. In that unfolding, he felt a gentle alignment with the order of the world, a sense of connection to the unseen guidance that shaped the path before him. He reflected on the importance of listening, not only with ears, but with awareness and openness. Guidance could arrive unexpectedly, in forms small or overlooked, yet carry profound meaning. The donkey's wisdom had reminded him that insight often required humility, the willingness to acknowledge what one does not know, to trust in what one cannot yet see, and to follow carefully even when the reason is hidden. The narrow path seemed to stretch ahead, quiet and steady, inviting continued attention. The stones, the grasses, and the gentle presence of the donkey all whispered the same lesson, that journeys were not only about where they led, but about how they were walked. Balaam understood that patience and attentiveness were gifts, and that the world itself spoke in ways subtle and enduring when one allowed space to listen. A calm settled within him, a reflection deeper than thought alone. The journey, the pauses, the unseen presence, and the faithful guidance of the donkey had all shaped him softly, revealing a lesson of care and attention that extended beyond the moment. Humility and patience became companions beside him, teaching that understanding often emerges not in the haste of movement, but in the quiet observance of the world's gentle instructions. Within this stillness, Balaam's awareness continued to grow. Each soft step, each pause of the donkey, each beam of morning light became part of a lesson that stretched beyond the narrow path. The journey, he realized, was a gentle teacher, showing that listening, truly listening, could reveal truths larger than any expectation, and that wisdom often waits quietly, ready to be recognized by those willing to see beyond the obvious and attend to the subtle signs placed along the way. The morning light spread softly across the narrow path, warming the stones, the grasses, and the steady figure of the donkey beneath Balaam. The journey had moved gently, each step carrying quiet meaning, each pause offering subtle insight. Patience, humility, and the gentle art of listening now rested quietly within him, like a soft warmth that settled across the land and lingered in the air. Balaam felt a calm assurance growing within him, a peaceful recognition that the guidance he had received, though subtle and unexpected, had been certain and protective. The narrow road, the careful steps of his faithful companion, and the unseen presence of the angel all combined to create a quiet harmony that filled the morning. The world itself seemed to breathe slowly, carrying a gentle rhythm that mirrored the soft unfolding of understanding in his heart. He allowed himself to rest in that rhythm, letting the lessons of the journey sink fully into his spirit. The warmth of the sun on the stones, the quiet sway of the grasses, and the steady, faithful presence of the donkey reminded him that wisdom often comes quietly, and clarity appears in its own time. Every hesitation, every careful step, every pause along the path had held purpose, and in that realization he found gentle comfort. A sense of protection and guidance wrapped softly around him, as though the unseen hand of care had always been present, shaping the path and preserving the journey. The narrow road no longer demanded haste, only awareness, reflection, and trust. The stillness invited quiet contemplation, allowing understanding to unfold like sunlight spreading slowly across the hills, touching every corner with warmth and calm. Balaam thought of the lessons carried not only by the donkey, but by the journey itself. Patience, humility, and the quiet art of attentive listening had shown him truths beyond what he could see. The pauses, the careful movements, and the steady guidance reminded him that life's wisdom often comes from unexpected places, and that gentle awareness can reveal what force alone cannot. If this story has brought comfort, there is a gentle invitation to continue with our channel, to explore more of these calm and soothing Bible stories, allowing their peaceful lessons to guide each step with patience, trust, and care, and to carry their quiet wisdom softly throughout your day and night. Good night, and God bless you, my dear friend.